Welcome to episode 4 of Podcast The Hero. It's 4, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 4.
We've done 4. And this is your pal Fritzy. I'm here again without Rody because the band went to Australia to tour with Pliny, and Rody totally big-timed me and the show by going, hey, let's start this podcast 2 weeks before he went out on the road. And so like, I can't let you guys go without content. I can't let the fans not like, I can't, that's too much of a tease, right? To do 2 episodes and then nothing for a couple weeks. Like that would be not great. So, I had to put out some content. I understand that like 10% of the listening enjoyment of this show is Fritz and 90% is Rody, and that's what you guys are here for. But since Rody, too important to even come and record with me, we had to do something different. So I thought I would invite one of his favorite people to be on the podcast without him. So I brought in Cornman to come and do an episode of the podcast with me, talk all things PGH and Discord and all the stuff that goes on around sort of Rody's weird little online community and talk about that. So welcome in, Cornman.
Thank you for having me, Fritz. That was far too nice. I don't know if I would go so far as to say I'm one of Rody's favorite people, but I'll take it.
Oh, I think you probably are.
Well, I'll take it. But yeah, I mean, how dare him, by the way,
right?
Go off and play music for the fans in a country I haven't been to in a long time.
Yeah.
How dare he?
I've never even been there.
I haven't even been there.
He does. Why doesn't he come over to my house and play music for me? I mean,
yeah.
He could go to Australia. Like we already talked about how Australia is just a land of thieves.
Yeah. That's where they got their start, right?
And also, like, why didn't he invite us? Like,
that's the most offensive part, is that we weren't personally invited to go on tour with them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, think about all the cool content we could have created while on tour with them. I mean, they had their big private jet. Yeah. Right. They had the big private chartered jet that they went to Australia in because they're huge rock stars, and they just ride in their cool band bus to the airport, where their private jet that says like "Protest the Hero" on the side, and they get on their fancy plane with all their flight attendants and cocktails and I don't know, probably strippers, I assume. And fly to Australia. Like, there's plenty of room on that plane.
Yeah, and fun fact, that plane is actually the Metallica plane from the Death Magnetic tour they did a few years ago. So it's big. There's plenty of space. There's no excuse.
Yeah, none whatsoever. So pretty disappointed in Rody, but that's pretty par for the course. Always disappointed with him. But he you got to at least give them a little bit for like, hey, we haven't been to Australia in a long time. We have 6 or 7 fans there. They don't really get to interact with us much. So like, we'll take this opportunity to go. It's commendable, but also like they could have brought like all their fans from North America with them on that plane, like all 25 of us. And we could have been there and like the shows would have been full instead of like them playing to like basically empty bars and stuff. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the one of the shows is just to Koala. I think it's the only.
Yep.
Yeah. Real talk though, I'm actually the most disappointing thing for me about this tour is that I didn't get to go. I was planning to go to Australia and go to at least a few dates because I've never been, and it was a good opportunity to get down there, see the area. And man, those plane tickets are fucking expensive. Holy cow. So that didn't happen. But, I'm there in spirit, and hopefully they know that. And, it seems like all the dates have gone really well so far from their Instagram. So, good things there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In all honesty, the tour, from all appearances, is going really well. Shows have been packed. Uh, the boys have been happy. Talked a little bit to Hank, and yeah, says they're having a blast. So yeah, it's I wish I was there. I got a little FOMO going on, but it is what it is. They'll be back. Rhodey will be back on the podcast very soon, and then I'm pretty sure there's going to be more opportunities for all of us to go see them in the not too distant future. So it's a good deal. It's a good deal. And so, Corn, I wanted to ask, like, everybody has their own I discovered PTH story.
Yep.
Mine was mostly at the time that this album came out, that was the album that I like sort of was my discovery of PTH. Was really, I was listening to a lot of like post-hardcore and punk rock stuff, and my little brother, I mean, I say he's my little brother. He's in his 40s now, so it's not like he's like a little kid. But he was like, "You got to check out this record," and it was Volition. And I was like, I was pretty blown away by it, but I was also like, it took me a minute to sort of comprehend what I was hearing, because I hadn't heard anything like it before. Right? There's not a lot of bands out there that sound like PTH. And so it took me a minute to really like get into it, but it was Volition. That's where I got my start with PTH. And I think that's a lot later than a lot of PTH fans, but it also definitely colors my my relationship to their music. And so I was curious, like, how did you discover PTH, their music? I'm sure before you became involved with the band itself.
Yeah, well, Volition is a fantastic first album to have. I mean, did you just like put it in, hit play, and the first thing you hear from this band is Clarity? Because that's an amazing, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm kind of jealous because Volition's such a good album. I have a great relationship with that album, largely because of what it meant for the band at the time, and as a fan, kind of where we were at, coming off of Scurrilous and their kind of relationship with the record label at the time. And maybe we can get into that a little bit later, what that was like. But yeah, I mean, for me, and I think for a lot of Protest fans, I mean, it goes back to Fortress, right? That was the one for so many. And for me, it was largely just, that was the age I was at. I was in high school. Fortress came out, this is 2008, which seems both like yesterday and so long ago at this point. But yeah, I was so a little teenage Corn, very interested in guitar at the time. And like every guitar kid in high school, I wanted to join a band, but I didn't have any friends who could play instruments or were interested in joining a band. So I, you start reaching out to people that you know or that your friends know that maybe play guitar. Hey, let's just meet up and jam sometimes. Just like craving for people to play with. And this was in the days too, right before, really, let's say before VoIP, right? So before like internet communication was really easy outside of text. And so we used to, I had a couple of friends, we used to like literally call each other on our flip phones and like play guitar over the phone, coming out with shitty phone speakers, and we're all off timing because there's no way that can be synced. But like just how starved, we all were for just like people to play with. And so there was one guy, actually the name of Nick, that, we got to jam with every once in a while. And he told me to check out this band, Protest the Hero. They were pretty good. I was really big into BT Bam at the time, still am, one of my favorite bands also. And so like they're kind of similar to BT Bam. You should check them out. They had a new album just come out. Like, okay, so I went on to LimeWire and I downloaded all of Fortress and all of Kazaya. And I've purchased albums many times on many media. So but yeah, that was, how I got started was just that's how I got music then. As a broke high school student, is let me just go on torrent it and see what it's about, throw it into iTunes, and hit play on Fortress, and the first thing I hear is Blood Meat. And I did not like it. I was not into it. It was far too aggressive. I had no frame of reference, and so I stopped the song about halfway through, and I put it away for about 6 months. And then I was, one day I was going around, and I was hearing in my head. I was waking up, for more, just like hearing this like melody, and I couldn't remember place what it was. And so I was going through iTunes, and then I remembered like, hey, I think it maybe sounds like that blood something song. So I went, found it, and then actually listened to, got through the end of Blood Music. Okay, that was good. And then the Dissensions came on, and that was the end of it for me. The Dissensions hooked me immediately. So melodic, so catchy, and from there I was hooked. Right, it was I was into everything. I listened to that album probably 10 times that week, just because I was just obsessed. And then we had a few years till Scurrilous, and then Volition, and the rest is history from there. But yeah, that was definitely my getting into the band.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think a lot of fans, right? Fortress is the way that I think the majority of PTH fans came to PTH. And I've always been sort of like you talked about how like you're a big BT Bam fan, and your friends like it sounds kind of like BT Bam. It's sort of in that same genre kind of thing. And I come from the other side of the world, right? So I was listening to a Wilhelm Scream and Propaganda and stuff like that, and like came to PTH from sort of the more punk rock side of the world. And PTH has this weird ability to sort of live in between those two worlds, like sort of the more metalcore metal side of the world and the punk rock side of the world, especially considering like vocally, like not just vocally but lyrically, like they definitely explore some stuff that has a very punk rock sensibility, much more than a metal sensibility lyrically, and especially later. When you get into Volition and later, a lot of that lyrical composition really sort of jives with sort of a punk rock sensibility, which makes sense. I mean, considering who Roadie's favorite bands are, and when he took on primary lyric writing and stuff like that, that the content of those lyrics became very much more about his viewpoint on things, and that really so that's sort of where I come from it. And I think it's so cool. Like, I think it's great that you have like a friend of ours, Ashwin, he comes to PTH from the punk rock side. And then somebody like a friend of ours, like Merg, comes to PTH from the metalcore side. And so like, we just have like there's like this whole group of people that come to PTH from different perspectives, and PTH sort of fits in this little spot in the middle that just like draws people in. It's very cool.
Yeah, I think that's the appeal to protest, and what's made them, allow them, I guess, to stick around for so long. And especially in the early days, Kasaya and Fortress for sure, right? There is that metalcore aspect to it. But I mean, I would argue that their punk roots go back, even before that. I mean, listening to some things like off of with their EP,
A Calculated Use of Sound.
Yeah, Calculated Use of Sound. Thank you. There's a lot of punk elements there, and I think a lot of that comes from Roadie. But I don't want to understate Mo's influence too, in the kind of the punk vibe that really trend through all their music back from the beginning. I mean, obviously being the drums, is very important in the vibe of any song. But he brings that punk element, and then Roadie, was able to play with that as well. And kind of brings a different element to the band that separates them from the rest of prog and metal, core, or whatever else, right? Like, I feel like, especially now, but really starting with Scurrilous, I mean, I've been a big proponent that at this point, protest, their genre is progressive punk more than anything, right? And they're bridging the gap between punk and metal, but at its core, it's if a punk band did metal music, what would that be like? And I think it's great.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, and there's not a lot of bands that do that, right? And each one that does, right? So I think of like Propagandy.
Mm-hmm.
They're a punk band, but they're a punk band with a thrash band sensibility. You know what I mean, musically. Or somebody like a Wilhelm Scream, who is like, they're a punk band, but they're also really melodic and very progressive in their writing. And so like it's all a little bit shades of different, but it's all sort of in the same kind of thing, and everybody does it a little different. And it had like, everyone has like this great like thing that they do well. Like none of them sound like each other. They all bring something different and new and fun and engaging and catchy, and like there's just, I don't know. And that's probably why they're my favorite bands, right?
Yeah.
Like bands that do that. That's why they're our favorite bands.
I 100% agree. I was, for me, if you're looking at my list of favorite bands, Protest, BT Bam is probably the exception to this, because they're the most just kind of progressive metal out of all of them. Dream Theater, right? The Deer Hunter, right? All of these, bands that I would say like my top four are all bands that really they're always bringing something new to it, and oftentimes they're trying to span genres, right? They're like, sitting down, like we don't want to get locked into one sound or one genre, right? We want to tell a story, and I think for me that's what's most compelling in music is. Obviously, the music itself is great. Like I'm a guitarist, right? So I love music for music's sake. I love the technicality of a lot of it. But for me, it's the kind of the storytelling that they bring to the table, and all these bands do, and Protest in particular. And that's Roadie in the lyrics, but it's also the rest of the band as well, and how the music itself, right, it's melodic and tells a story in a way. One of the most frustrating things that I feel about the band's music is one of the things I like about it the most is that I feel like Luke has this thing in his head where he refuses to play a riff more than twice in a song. And that's super frustrating, because some of the, catchy melodic riffs that I want to just hear over and over and over again, you hear it once, maybe twice, and that's gone. But at the same time, right, that is what makes their music so engaging. It never gets boring. It's never the same. You'll settle into, a riff for like an act of a song, and then, all of a sudden it's going to switch, and it's basically, something completely different for the rest of the journey there. And that kind of takes you on that emotional, story without even, before Roadie even enters into it. And then Roadie adds that extra layer on top that just sends it to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like, that's one of the other cool things about PTH is like, you can, and they have done this now on multiple occasions, is release instrumental. Yeah. Release their albums just with the instrumentals, because it's not just backing music for a vocal melody. Right. The music itself stands on its own. And I tend to put bands like PTH in a bit of a different category for me, that it's more like a classical composition than it is writing a rock and roll song. Right. The way that they compose the music is much more akin to something that a classical composer would be doing, compared to somebody who's like, okay, here's my 4-chord progression. And, so yeah. And that makes it super interesting as well. Like the musicianship, the technical ability is incredible, but it's also like, how did you put all of those things together into this one complete piece of music? Like just managing the sheer volume of notes, right, in a composition is just incredible to me. And so like the way Luke writes and the way the band as a whole writes is really, really incredible. It's much more akin to composing than just songwriting.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, knowing too that especially now a lot of this is written in Guitar Pro before they actually play it, which a lot of, I think, snobs, to be fair, right,
Mhm.
will knock, and I think that's bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
because I think that adds that like more becomes more like scoring than just
Yep.
recording riffs or
Yep.
things, and we're not putting blocks places because that's what I can play. It's like we're really trying to examine what is the musical elements here, right? What are we trying to do? And I think that that care comes through in the end
Yeah.
product.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like when you think about a composer, a classical composer is sitting down with sheet music, right? And they know the function of
Mhm.
of what they're writing, the notes that they're writing on a piece of sheet music. They're not transcribing a thing that they played and went, okay, what was that? What did I just play? No, they're writing it out because they hear it in their head and they know that, like, okay, this in theory, like in music theory, this goes together in these pieces and this is where this next note should be, and et cetera, et cetera. And they do all of that. And then they go, okay, here's my piece of music. Now I'm going to play it. And that's how PTH writes. They write like they're composing classical music, and it's great. It's fantastic. And also it gives fans, I think, the great piece with PTH making their stuff available in Guitar Pro, and like you can go in and look at like the exact files that they use when they're writing the music and examine it and learn from it. And like, how many other bands, are doing that proactively, right? That they're like, this is part of our process, and now you can be a part of that process and see it. Because I think for a lot of bands out there, the songwriting process and stuff is sort of a black hole to fans,
Mhm.
right? And with PTH, it's really not. It's like really transparent. It's like, hey, here are the files that we wrote, and now you can look at them. And then we had to learn how to play all this stuff.
Yeah,
So
and as a fan, and going back to right being somebody who has always tried to play the music that I've listened to, uh, right, like Sheet Happens is one of the greatest things happened to like the music fandom. I would
yeah,
argue, and they're not the first ones to do like work with artists to release the tab books, but I think I've because it's at their core, right? Like Luke and the rest of the guys that work there, right? This is what they also do, right? They are, looking to play their friends' music and, for their peers and, are trying to figure this stuff out. And so, for them, it's just second nature and like, let's, give this to the fans in a way, right?
yeah,
Tying to what you're saying and thinking about more, coming up, again, just going back to, just, like when Fortress came out, right? There was no way that I was going to be able to, like actually play those songs in the way that like they are. Because one, I wasn't good enough, but mostly because like there was no way for me to like really get at like, well, what is he actually doing here, right? I could go on the
right,
Ultimate Guitar and find a fan tab, which obviously I did,
yeah,
but like it's not the same. And then
yeah,
thinking through even like bigger bands like I mentioned Metallica before, right? Like Eric Clapton, like the big names, right? They're working with like a Hal Leonard type group that's
right.
publishing like like a big publisher, right? So they're
Oh
not
yeah,
like interested in like what is the fan experience. They're interested in we're trying to sell a product. How do we make money off of it?
yep,
And so, yeah, like PDH at their core, right? They're writing a Guitar Pro and they're providing it to the fans, and then through Sheet Happens, it's bringing that same experience through the rest of like the prog genre and prog industry. I think is fantastic because now. I listen to pretty much any album, and one of the first things I'll do is go on a Sheet Happens and see can I just buy the
yeah,
download of the Guitar Pros and
yep,
give them some money, but also now I can just dive into it and I'm not sitting there for days and weeks trying to figure out what the hell is he doing.
yeah, yeah. Like the in my youth, like the having to put on a CD,
Mm-hmm.
because in my youth I was still listening to CDs, and then having a guitar or a bass and then listening and trying to learn it by ear, right? Just like what did I hear to there? Okay, I think they're playing this. I think this is it, and trying different, like having to learn it all by ear instead of being able to like the technology now with Guitar Pro. It's basically like, oh yeah, here's the Guitar Hero, like just follow along note by note slow it down, loop this part that you want to practice, like, and you can visualize it right in front of you. And the software makes it so easy to engage. Now, I can't play any of it. I've tried.
It's hard.
I started doing the slow test, the hero streams on my Twitch stream, which was me taking a song. I think it was Mist. I took Mist. I put it in Guitar Pro. I turned it down to 10% and said, "Can I play along with this?" And I still can't. Like, it's just my fingers move like mud. I can't move my fingers fast enough to like actually play any of it. And also, when you're playing that slow, you lose some of that, like the rhythm and the cadence and the sort of the natural flow of stuff. So when you're playing it super slow, but still, it's so much fun to interact with. And I know I'm not a great guitar player, but I have a lot of fun messing around with stuff and like picking out little pieces that I love. And like, I can learn this like 7-note run that I love and be like, yeah, I fucking did it. It's like, cool.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? It's not about playing it perfectly or being good, right? But it's about having that, being able to feel like you're interacting, right, with the music that you love. And, then therefore, right, the people who make that music. And especially if you're fortunate enough to, meet them at any point, even just go into a show and, get into, meet them afterward, get an autograph, right? And then you take that home and like, you go to play the music and you have that connection, which is something that as a fan, right, that's like the only thing that you could really ever ask for. And I wanted, you mentioned back in your day, let's go back even further, right? Let's do a Christmas Carol style Ghost of Music Past situation here, right?
Yeah.
Let's go back to classical music, to the times of Beethoven, Mozart, and then of course our friend Lucifer Hoskin that we met last week. Like music was like, people bought music in the fact that like they would get sheet music and then go home and like play it themselves, right? Like that was how music was transferred, because we couldn't just hand somebody a CD or recording. Like it was, so like you write your music and then you try and go sell the sheet music to somebody. And that's, we've gone full circle, right, to that. And I think there's something really cool about that, and just being able to really get to kind of the heart of it, is something really real about this is the music they wrote, not like what they're playing of it, which is one thing, but this is the music itself. And that's really cool.
Yep. Yeah. And I'll take this opportunity right now, sort of like mid-roll in the episode. If this hasn't been enough of a sales pitch for Sheet Happens, Luke, to get a sponsorship for this podcast, come on, man. Come on. Help us out a little bit.
Well, we had HK on 2 weeks ago too, right? So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is like, it's basically the Sheet Happens podcast at this point. So help me out. How did you get involved with the band? So like when I joined this community, right, via me running into Rody on Twitch at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yep.
He was working on his dinosaur space rock opera on Twitch. And then I found the Discord and sort of got the guts to actually like say hello to some people in Discord, and I don't know what came over me, because that's not like me. Like normally I'm too shy, and like groups of existing friends are intimidating to me. Like it's like, I don't want to be that dude that like walks up to the group of people and sort of stands 2 feet away and laughs, and it's awkward. You were well established with them at that point. So curious, like, how did you end up getting involved with the band itself, beyond like being a fan of the music? Yeah,
that's a great question there. I actually remember when you popped in during the Slopper recordings, and you definitely, you brought a good energy to the chat. So I'm glad you stuck around. So I got involved. It's actually been fairly recent. Really around the start of the pandemic is kind of when I actually kind of got involved with the band. I'd been in the Discord for a long time, but never really active, mostly because I just wasn't really active on Discord at all. I was going back actually before this. I think I joined the Discord 2018, 2017. I have to go back and look. It's been a while. But like it was the only Discord I was in. So I think for most of the life in there, I didn't even have the app installed. So kind of a little bit before COVID, I had started to get more into, Discords in general. And I was like, oh, hey, I'm in this, Fartcord thing. And, Roady streams used to stream video games on Twitch way back before his kind of current Twitch career, back when he used to poorly play Call of Duty before Choady was born. And that's actually when folks like Ashwin got involved. Way back then, I think Ashwin's one of the first people to join the Discord after it was created. But so then, for me, I was a little bit before the pandemic, getting more involved in the Discord. Roady started streaming again. And then, obviously, March 12th, 2020 comes around, everything shuts down. We're all in our homes. And I just started spending a ton more time on, places like Discord and, public Slacks that I'm in, and just other kind of online communities, in that era. Roady started, streaming again, doing his music thing, getting more involved there. And it just kind of developed organically as I just got more involved, in the Discord community. We had more people join. That's when we had kind of right around then actually, to get back, right kind of 3 months after the pandemic started is when Palimpsest dropped.
Oh, yeah.
And so then the community blew up, right? Because Palimpsest dropped, and then so that's when we, or really when the Canary single dropped, we saw people like, Musk join, Merg joined, a lot of the people that we think of as the core Discord group now really joined when the Canary dropped and the From the Sky dropped. And, from there, we Anel as the main mod, and, myself really tried to put a lot of work to kind of build this into a bit of a community. Now there's more activity and people there, and as things grew, Roady noticed that I was getting more involved, and the real key thing was the integration between Twitch and Discord. So Roady wanted to set up, and this is back when he was on his personal channel before the PTH channel existed. The Twitch has an integration with Discord, so you can say, if I'm a Twitch subscriber, I can get cool stuff in the Discord, basically is how that works. And then it's up to the creator to, determine what that means. And so he set that up and was having issues with it. And I was just joking in the general chat, hey, if you make me a mod, I can fix this for you. And so he called my bluff. He immediately made me a mod within 15 seconds, I think, of me saying that, and said, I can find the message, but it was something along the lines of, okay, now you have the ability to do it or I'll ban you. I did, immediately, oh shit, right, dig into the Discord settings and figure out what the issue was and let him know when he got it fixed. And I've been a mod ever since. And
that's awesome.
It's been great. I really love the Discord community. You mentioned yourself, right? For some reason you took the effort to, say hi and, take that step. And I think that's a testament to the community that we have in the Discord, is that, it's very welcoming and makes people, want to reach out and participate. And that's something I'm really proud of, but that even goes beyond me, right? It's Roady fosters that himself, and it's, the rest of the community as well that makes that possible. But yeah, we have a really great community there. And then from there, the Twitch thing just came, kind of separately when Roady was moving to, or I guess trying to get more of the band involved. They made a deal with Twitch to do some streaming there as a band, and they moved over to the Push the Hero channel. And Roady asked me to be the mod there as to get things rolling. And now, frankly, I'm not as involved in Twitch as I should be, just because of time. But it's great. And as you know, Roady is a great person to work with. So it's been a good relationship for us.
Yeah, I think you and I both, that's funny that he called your bluff a little bit. That's exactly how I got to be friends with Roady. Was I said something, he called my bluff, and then ever since then we've been buds. And it's and this is a pitch for anybody who's listening to the podcast or watching this on YouTube or whatever that hasn't been engaged with the Discord community or the Twitch community around the band. It is an incredibly welcoming place. Everybody in the Discord is so kind and welcoming and supportive. And I can't tell you how many other Twitch streamers that are like fans of the band that like I didn't start streaming on Twitch until after getting involved with the Discord and with Roadie Stream. Merg started streaming. Like there's a bunch of people. Ghost has started streaming. Like there's a bunch of people that have started streaming just because we all want to support each other, and also like, hey, what else are we going to do as a group of people, right? Like let's do this stream or TBJ or whatever. Like everybody's so supportive of each other. Everybody just wants to like hang out all the time. There's a whole bunch of people coming up later this month that are like that are all friends from this Discord that are traveling to Toronto to go see a Wilhelm Scream, like not even to see PTH, right? We're going to see a Wilhelm Scream, and there's a whole bunch of people that are just going to go together because they're friends that have become friends on this Discord. And it really is like, it's the best community out there. Everybody is so kind. And the, like, I've been in Discords that are like huge and like so like managed, you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
down to like the specific thing. And it's like, it feels real managed. And this Discord feels like a fun place for everybody to come hang out. And I think that goes a long way to the way that you have set it up and the way that like the tools and the openness for suggestions and like all that stuff. The Cornbot, the glorious Cornbot. How did you like? Did you have to teach yourself from the scratch how to do that?
No, actually. So as a person, I've always been interested in programming and computers since I was a kid. I actually remember one of my early memories, and this is a funny story, is I remember getting in trouble, in a ton of trouble, just, absolutely just yelled at, and, because I had completely taken apart the entire family computer when I was 8, something like that. And so this is, the family computer was the
family computer,
right?
Yeah.
We probably have a lot of, Gen Z listening to this podcast now because time, but like, we used to, the personal computer was a myth for a long time. It right. was, there was the computer, and then, that was mostly what my dad used for email and for resumes, and my, my mom would, communicate, store pictures, that sort of thing. But like, that's what it was for. Yeah. But I was just fascinated with how it worked. And so I remember one day, my plan was just take it apart and then put it back together and it'd all be fine. And I took it all apart and I put it all back together and it never worked again. And computers were expensive back in that day. And then we had a pretty cheap computer. We just got at Best Buy, and it was, a chunk of change just to get that. And so, my parents were livid. I didn't get to touch it for a long time, but that was the start for me, right? It was just that curiosity. Yeah. And so I've always been involved in computers and tech and programming. I've got 3D printers behind me, as you can see. And so that's just, so with Cornbot, that really came out of, two things. One, I always was looking for a side project to do, some sort of, coding something just to kind of get that energy out. But also, I don't have as much time as I would like to really dedicate to being in the Discord and that sort of thing, and moderating, really, right, and being a presence. And so Cornbot really came out of a necessity of kind of pairing those two things together. Is there some level of automation that I can have in just kind of basic keeping an eye on things? So like if something really happens, like I can the bot will notify me. Or various things. But then once we have it, right, there's fun things we can do that are right. More community facing than just me as a moderator. And so I think it was actually Jesse in the Discord on his own completely one day created a toy bot just to react to anytime somebody posted a corn emoji, would react with a corn. Right, and set that up, and and it was actually that I'd been working on with Cornbot. So I pinged him and was like, hey, like I love this, like let's integrate this in. And so that was that actually forced me to just deploy Cornbot, just release it kind of into the thing, and I've been kind of building it ever since. But yeah, it's really just a way for me to kind of keep an eye on things and just make sure that the sandbox is okay, but also allow some fun things with people, and it's gotten a bit long in the tooth a little bit. So I've actually been working on some updates, new functionality, etc. Basically, whole 2.0 to Cornbot that I'm hoping to release sometime soon, make things a bit better, more fun to Discord. But yeah, I mean, that's really all there is there. But yeah, it's become something that I've definitely become known for.
For sure.
It's been great.
It's so cool. Like it like, I feel like it just like sort of, to me, it happened really fast. And I don't know how much time you were putting into it beforehand, before you released it. But like, all of a sudden, Cornbot was there, and it was like fully fledged. Like this fully fledged bot was in there doing stuff, and I was like, "This is fucking impressive as fuck, dude!" Just threw this thing out there, like so cool. So yeah, I mean, and that's a thing that is unique to our Discord, right? Like that is the Cornbot. Nobody else has a Cornbot. Nobody else's Cornbot does what your Cornbot does.
That's true.
It's
yeah, I mean, I had spent a decent amount of time on it, but not a ton. I mean, one of the things about something like a Discord bot is there's tons of libraries and frameworks and things out there that other people have done the work for. So I'm basically just like using other people's tools and making them do what I want. But yeah, I mean, it's funny that you said it was going to fully fledged. I still think of Cornbot as like an alpha, like a beta version almost. Because behind the scenes, like some of the code is atrocious, but it works, right? That's the important thing. But yeah, so it's definitely evolved over time. A lot of the evolution of Cornbot's been on the server side, and on the back end, the functionality for the users hasn't changed too much, but I've spent a lot of time in just making it more stable and easier to work on and that sort of things behind the scenes. Over time. And yeah, so I really don't spend too much time on it. I probably spend an hour or two a month realistically, on that, kind of keeping that up to date. Yeah. It's pretty, self-sufficient at this point.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
And I'll add too,
go ahead.
Discord bots are a thing, right? So Cornbot's not doing anything super special, but the thing that makes Cornbot special was the fact that it's ours. Definitely I could have brought in something like, MEI6 or whatever, all those, big, let's say corporate Discord bots, but I think that, was what makes our community special is we're not super corporate. We're very DIY. We like to do things ourselves and also make things for ourselves. And so that's what Cornbot really is in the spirit of that. Is it's, something I am creating specifically for this Discord server, and is really tailored towards our community.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I mean, I've tried some of those other bots, and like you run into some of them in other Discord, and it just is, it's utilitarian, right? It's not, it doesn't give you that sense that like Cornbot is part of our Discord. It's a, you know what I mean? Like when people say like, oh, like the third main character of this film is New York City. You know what I mean? Like Cornbot is a part of the community. Cornbot
I think so.
Yeah. It's as important to the Discord as anything else in the Discord. It is like, it's part of the landscape, and it's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, it has its own personality too, right? Like,
right.
Like the good bot, bad bot responses, things like it's definitely its own entity. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was going to switch gears a little bit, just in, like, I know that you, prior to the last summer's PTH run, where they did sort of the Eastern Canada run and then out to Edmonton, this was sort of their first shows post pandemic, first shows really touring Palimpsest. They needed to rehearse a lot, and one of the things that Tim had asked you to do was re-record parts from some of the earlier stuff.
Yep.
So that I think it was so Mike could have it right?
Yeah.
For
Yeah. So Mike, as the drummer, when he plays live, he likes to make sure that like what he has in his ears is accurate, right? Because as everybody listening to this probably knows, right? Like the drums are the most important thing when it comes to keeping rhythm, in a band.
mm-hmm.
Everybody else in the band is listening to the drums for the timing, and so if Mike makes a mistake, it messes everything up for everybody else, and so. What he would like to mitigate that is rather than have the rest of the band playing live in his ears, he would have tracks from the album, in his ears. So,
Yep.
So that way, if Tim makes a mistake or, something like that, it doesn't also mess up Mike and to mess everybody else up. So that was the idea. And then for everything since Fortress, I believe, like they have all the stems for and everything. That was all not an issue. But I guess with Kazaya specifically, Mike or whoever couldn't find the like individual tracks for the songs there, and so it was on Tim to re-record the guitar parts for whatever songs they were going to have, and then Mike could take that and put that in his ears while they're playing. Simple enough.
Yep.
Tim, like as you mentioned, right? Like they had to relearn a lot of this, especially thinking about Kazaya. That's 2005. That was so long ago.
Right. Yep.
And then they've not been super active in the last few years, just for various reasons. So like he was already relearning his own parts, and so he was streaming one day, talking kind of about that process, and I actually mentioned in the chat like, hey, like I actually know a lot of these songs because I've learned them over the years. Like if you need me to record anything for you, just help you out, like let me know. Like I've got software, everything, whatever. He took me up on it, and so we DM'd some, and like Turn Soonest to the Sea was one that he wanted, basically if I could do it, I could ever re-record Luke's tracks because he would have to learn those on top of learning his own, and that's extra work for him and how much time, all that. So I was like, sure. So I took it, I pulled down the Guitar Pro, that I bought from Sheet Happens, tying that back, and opened up Logic, plugged my my stuff in, and spent a few weeks and basically recording a cover of Luke's side of that song, and sent it back and forth with Tim, and they ended up not using that song on the tour, so that didn't end up going anywhere. But but it was a cool experience, and guys got a good relationship with Tim, and we still keep in touch, and I was actually talking with him about the current tour a few days ago, and I definitely, would do anything like that, again, if needed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a ton of fun. Actually, you mentioned streaming. I did my own Twitch streaming a little bit, which I do want to get more into when I get more time. But there's a few times where it's actually just on Twitch, like, hey, I'm going to learn, this song and make it something that not just I'm doing, but that we're doing together as a community. Again, and so that was really cool to see you and Merg and a few others, join and just kind of hang out with me while I was doing that, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. It's so much fun. And it's so much fun to be able to see the people that you have met in the community and see their talents and see like the things that spark joy in them, because that's like, to me, that's where I get the most joy, is seeing other people being joyful and sharing the things that make them great. And so like getting to watch you do that was so cool. And I was like so excited for you. And like, I was really invested. I was like, I want to see this guy like knock this out of the park. And like, and also like to see like how phenomenal a guitar player you are. Like,
oh, thanks.
I couldn't do any of that. And so like, I take a lot of joy in seeing people who are really good at what they do. So that's, so like Twitch is such a cool platform in general for that, because generally, I mean, roadie aside, people are going to go on Twitch and showcase the things they do well. Roadie, not so much. Roadie likes to go on Twitch and showcase the things he doesn't do that great, which is fine. That's his thing. But like for everybody else, like going on and seeing you playing guitar, or like watching TBJ, who fucking is like a Doom god and plays Doom like better than anybody else, or like, it's so cool. It's so cool to be able to get involved with people, and then to take it to the next level, right? PTH, I can't think of another band that like I would have the opportunity to be doing a podcast as a fan of the band, right? Of doing a podcast with the singer of this band that I'm a fan of. Or like you're recording stuff that Mike's going to use in his in-ears to play songs live. Like as a fan of a band, there aren't a lot of opportunities like that. And this band is so open to their fans and so engaged with their fans that it's almost like it's your friends that you hang out with in their garage when they were in a garage band that you feel like you're part of, a little bit of a part of it. Way more than any other band that I've ever been a fan of or engaged with. Like they're so hands-on with fans and so engaged with fans that it's a different feeling. It's not like hierarchical. It's not like here's the band, here's the fans. It's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that feeling of like when you're at a show and there's no stage and the fans are just in there with the band. You know what I mean? Like those small basement shows where everybody's just kind of piled in together and you're standing next to the lead. Like that's how it feels with PTH all the time. Whether they're on a stage or on Twitch or in just chatting in Discord or whatever it is, like it's just people. And it's so cool.
It's fantastic. And yeah, every time I send a DM on Discord to Tim and he responds, right, I still feel that like that rush, that little giddiness, right? Like, oh, so we responded. That's all, And it's like, and at this point, I would consider Tim to be a friend, right? And still, like when I get that back, it's still like, and so there's something, like there's no other band, right, that has this community feeling, like, and I would actually, so Toronto, so the Toronto show was this in July? When we were there for the Canada thing? And so like there was the Toronto show, for me, it was the show that, Roadie wasn't able to sing. He came out, saying the first, got through the first song and then had to step off stage. His voice just wasn't working that night. And that's, unfortunately, I felt, we all felt really, for Roadie. But why I think this makes this story such a uplifting story is, it sucks that Roadie couldn't perform. We didn't get to see that. But instead the band did an instrumental set the rest of the show. And that entire crowd was singing for Roadie at the top of our lungs. And it was one of the coolest experiences that I've ever been a part of. Just that feeling of like, we are all in this together, right? It isn't the band and then us, right? Like Roadie needed some help. And so we stood in for him, to kind of complete that, and allow the band to still do, their thing. And that was really, really cool to me. And then Roadie was able to perform the next show. So everything's good. But that was, just one of the coolest things. And I don't think I'll ever forget just that, what that felt like to be in that group of people in that community in that moment. It was a very emotional night for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was so crushed when COVID came through my house and I couldn't go up to Toronto for that show.
Oh yeah.
And then when I heard what happened, I was like devastated for Roadie. Like I was so sad, and because I knew he was upset about it. But then at the same time, and then I was like, all those people that traveled so far because, they hadn't played live in so long and didn't get to see it. And then I was like, but also what a once in a lifetime thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're never going to be a part of that again. Like that's a once in a lifetime thing to have the entire crowd sing an entire live show with the band. Like that doesn't happen. You know what I mean? Like that's a special moment for that group of people that were in that venue that night, that they all share together and share with the band. And I know that it meant so much to Roadie that everybody did, right? Like that everybody was, instead of like getting bummed or pissed or whatever, everybody just embraced it. And like, I know that meant a lot to him and helped him get through that.
Yeah, it was a scary moment for sure, right? Because then they haven't toured in a while, right? So you start to wonder about like the the band, are they able to, continue the tour, go forward? And so, the fact that, Rhodey was able to recover and, now they're in Australia doing, that question's gone. Leaves like that kind of, that positive, there. Right.
Yeah.
And I know, like, I really, like, I was devastated, for Rhodey, and you could see it, right? We could see off stage, he's sitting over there, he's just fuming mad because he wanted to be there and perform and all of that. And so, I personally, I think, the rest of the crowd as well really felt, that we owed to Rhodey, right, to support him and be there for him in that moment. And I can't think of another band where that would happen and people aren't immediately throwing beers at the stage and demanding refunds and that sort of thing. And I didn't hear a single person ask for a refund. And if I had, I probably would have punched them because, like, no, like, that's, but that, it was just, I don't want to drag on that too long. I just think there's a good example of the type of community that, follows this band and the connection that we have with the band that, you're not going to get anywhere else.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So I thought we would talk about, and I know you told me before we started recording, you have some thoughts that you wanted to share, but I thought we would talk about sort of just kind of quick list, like favorite PTH records, stuff about PTH records that people might not necessarily think of, or like might be a little obscure or whatever. Like I know we talked earlier about, Fortress is a place where tons of people came in to PTH. I came in at Volition, and Volition will always sort of hold that place in my heart as my favorite PTH record. But it's also because it was the first one, right? It was the one that hooked me, and so many of the songs on there have like a lot of meaning to me. But I kind of I always think of, like, there's like, it goes Volition through Palimpsest, and then it goes backwards for me from Scurrilous through Keziah.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I'm a big Scurrilous fan. I think Scurrilous is a massively underrated record, and it is one of my favorite records. And I think it marked, for me, Scurrilous marked the place where they went from sort of trying, like, the music industry wanting to sort of pigeonhole them into that, like, the success of Fortress, and trying to pigeonhole them into that sort of metalcore, be less progressive, be more metalcore, be, whatever, and them going, no, we're going to go more the other way.
Yeah.
Instead. And that I really, really like about Scurrilous. And so Scurrilous was it was and always will be one of my favorite PTH records. And I think I said a couple weeks ago that if Fortress didn't exist, right, for people to, fans of Fortress often compare Scurrilous as the follow-up to Fortress, and a lot of fans were let down by Scurrilous. But I think if Fortress wasn't around, Scurrilous is on its own an amazing record, and doesn't get the love that it needs. And I think you have a similar take on another PTH record.
I do, and I'll add to defend Scurrilous, for a minute. I love Scurrilous. I think it's a fantastic album. They'll add as somebody who was, a fan when that album came out. I can understand why some bands didn't like it as much, because it is a big departure. And if you're looking for Fortress Part 2, it's not that. It's also, I think, the one that's the least cohesive out of all their other albums, which I think is a fair, point that, like, it's every song on that album is a banger, but it doesn't feel like they all are kind of one unit like every other album does.
Right.
I think, but to your point, right, if Fortress doesn't exist, or if that's an album by any other band, it's considered to be a fantastic album, and on its own merits. So I love Scurrilous; it's great. And but yeah, what I wanted to share is kind of my favorite Project Here album is Pacific Myth, and I feel personally that Pacific Myth is criminally underrated. for a number of reasons. And I think newer fans like yourself who joined the community after that album came out, I think it's difficult to fully appreciate what Pacific Myth meant to at least myself and those of us who were fans at that time when it was happening. So obviously, and I think you can't tell the story of Pacific Myth without talking about Scurrilous. And so, just important background here, right? Scurrilous, being their third album, was also the last album that they had under contract with their record label at the time.
Right.
And by the kind of this point in the process, towards the end of Scurrilous, I'm not sure, Rody could probably speak to more if you wanted to, the detail, but like, my understanding is the relationship with the record label was going fairly sour. Things like you mentioned, right, trying to pigeonhole them into a sound, but also just the financial aspect of it was really starting to become a burden on the band. And so Pacific Myth is a huge departure from that, right? And so we did Volition, and now I'm acting up. We got Scurrilous, Volition, Pacific Myth, right? Or am I missing that? Okay.
No, you're right. Yep.
PM was after Volition?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so then we get into Volition. Yeah, that's right. We're into Volition, and Volition's crowdfunded. And so, and that's very much the band reacting to the experience they had with Scurrilous behind the scenes, right? We don't want to go back into another record label. We don't want to go through this experience again. And as they mentioned in the Indiegogo video for launching the Volition crowdfunding campaign, that, right, like they had this huge success world tour, and they basically had no money left because that's how that industry works. And so, the crowdfunding campaign of Scurrilous was a huge success. Sorry, not Scurrilous, but Volition was a huge success. And it created this phenomenal album that because it was crowdfunded, I also feel like there's that strong community connection, there with that album itself. And it's one of my favorite albums of all time for that reason. And then they decided to experiment a little bit more. And said, okay, that was, we did a straight up crowdfunded record. That was great. But where can we push the boundaries anymore? Was there a way that we can do a streaming service or a streaming subscription for new music rather than release it as an album? And so Pacific Myth was the idea of, let's do 6 months. We're going to write, record, and release one song each month. And at the end, we'll have like a 6-song EP. Yep. And it was incredibly ambitious. It had never been done before. And completely changed how I interact with music from that time. And so this was October 2015 to March 2016. I remember because of just where I was in my life at that time, like I was kind of going through graduating college, going out into the real world during that time. And those 6 months, I remember, there's nothing that can replace the experience of waking up at the beginning of the month and new protest song drops. New protest. And then again the next month.
New protest day.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then again the next month. And then again the next month. Right. So if we can remember how we felt when the Canary dropped, for example, right? Now imagine that once a month for 6 months, like that feeling that you have. And then, so you're going through it, you're listening to each song for a month. And if you're me, right, you're also trying to play what you can on guitar, and you're talking to all your friends about it. Then you're sending the Guitar Pro stuff to your friend at work, like, hey, look at this. Like, what is he even doing here? Like, this is incredible. And they just did this in a month. Like, this is great. And to, like, there's just something about that experience that, like, having gone through that, like, it's almost like you had to be there, right? Yeah. Like, there's so many things. And then, so to go back then and listen to the album compiled, I know for me, like, I definitely feel a lot of that. I get pulled back into that, like that feeling of just, that rush. And there's that element too of, the songs do, once you get into Cold Water, the songs do start to build on each other, lyrically, as Rody kind of got into the theme of what he was trying to do there. And so there's that feeling of, it's almost like waiting for a new TV episode of what's going to happen next, right? I've been listening to this song for a month. I can't wait to see the next step in the story. So one of the criticisms I see about Pacific Myth a lot is that people don't like Caravan for whatever reason, even though it's one of the greatest songs. And people don't like Caravan because lyrically it's pulling the rug out from under you. And at the same time, that's why it's so amazing. And so this is what I want to talk about with Pacific Myth here is Pacific Myth is a microcosm, I think, of what makes the band Protest the Hero just so good. It's not just the music's fantastic, right? But also every song is very different. They all have their own feel, their own vibe. And then from the guitar, which is what I can speak the most about, just because that's what I know as an instrument, the techniques that they use are different in all of the songs, right? So they all have their own identity, which goes back to, this is a band that does not make the same music twice, right? We're never going to get Fortress Part 2. And frankly, I don't want that, because I can go listen to Fortress. What I do want is I want new stuff. And that's what this was, is every song was different. It was new. And you could see some themes and things that were linked together, and they would recall, but by and large, they were all very different. But there was still this kind of building sense, and there's kind of this, water story. There's like, I don't know all the details. I have to go back and look. Maybe Rody could speak to it at some point, but like kind of, a water detail. There's a, kind of an epic battle going on and all of this. And then Caravan comes along, and instead of being the climax of the story, is a Rody basically coming out, reaching out through the speakers and slapping you on the face, and what is, I think, one of his best lyrical works in kind of painting a picture of the lack of creativity and I don't know, like motivation, whatever, in the music industry, right? Like people investment, like people like are so many artists are not invested in the work that they're doing, the music that they're putting out, and it's just kind of garbage. And it's and Pacific Myth, I think, it tells that story in such a good way. It kind of gets you into that, and it's almost like Rody's doing that. He's telling this kind of just like whatever story that just gets you, engaged. And at the end, there's that twist. And that's the thing I love about Protest, is it's always the twist. It's never what you expect. It's always, the twist there. And so that on its whole, right, that's what Pacific Myth is it's this kind of reflection on the rest of the music industry and so many other artists and their failings, as creative people.
Right.
And while Rody's doing something real, right, at the same time.
Right.
So I'm going to pause there because I have another point I'm thinking I want to bring up, but I'll let you react to that.
Yeah. So, and I think another thing that is very Rody Walker is that he also is very self-deprecating and insightful into himself, right? So in Caravan, he's talking about, he's not immune to it. He's not immune to the same things that happen to other performers, but it's a sort of a call to action, right? To people to be like, hey, we can't just phone it in, gang. Like writing these sort of just generic stories about a thing that aren't really pushing new ideas or pushing society to be better, or trying to make an impact above and beyond just selling records or whatever it is, that like it's a call to action for that. But also, he's like, look, I'm not immune to this. I've done it myself. And I'm like, it's also like an acknowledgement, like, I'm going to be better. I want to be better. I want to. And so the thing that I love about Pacific Myth as a whole is it's 5 incredible pieces of music, individual pieces of music that lead you sort of down this path. And then the 6th thing says, see what I did to you?
Yeah.
Everyone else is doing this to you too. And doesn't that feel shitty? And like, we should demand more. It's so great.
Yeah. And it's very, all I can think of when I think of Caravan is the phrase, I'm so meta, even this acronym. Because that's what Caravan feels like. It's like, I'm calling this out while also, like I said before, like doing something real, right? And that's, I think is really cool. And so one other thing that I think makes Pacific Myth great is how, and this is entirely in my headcanon, Rody, you're free to come on next week and completely correct everything I've said here. I'd love that. But my headcanon is that this album is so tied in to like their sound through the rest of, even through Palimpsest today, And I would even tie back to Scurrilous as well. So if we look at, I'm going to list 3 songs for you, Fritzy. And I want you to tell me if you can figure out what
the theme is.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Dunsel, Underbite,
Okay.
Caravan.
Oh, okay. So I know Underbite and Caravan. I'd have to go back and look at the lyrics for Dunsel, but I love Underbite. Underbite is one of my favorite PTH songs, and I also suspect I'd have to go back and look at the timing of this, but I get a hunch that maybe Rhodey was listening to Wilhelm Scream at that time, because Career Suicide, the first track on Career Suicide, has a very similar sort of message, which is, hey, I'm this sort of I'm the front man. How you fucking doing tonight? I don't really care how you're doing. I'm from, insert name here. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing. It's like the phoning in of the thing. Like I have, here's my predetermined script that I'm going to say at every show. And it doesn't matter what show you go to, you're going to hear the exact same thing. And it's going to sound like we're having like chatter interaction with the fans, but we're not. I said the exact same thing 2 nights ago in Cincinnati.
Yep.
And it's that calling that out. Caravan and Underbite do the same thing. I'd have to go back and look at the lyrics to Dunsel, but I suspect it's a very similar.
Yeah, it is. Dunsel is like Underbite and Caravan are like kind of 2 sides of the same coin. Underbite is very much focused on like the artist performance. I have a vague memory of Rhodey mentioning at some point that like I don't know if it was like Warped Tour or something, had like, we're like watching like these bands come up and they're all the same, like literally like on stage, like they're all the same performance.
Yep.
And that where then Caravan is very much on artists and like what you're writing and releasing, but as fans too, like what are we expecting and are we asking for more? And Dunsel, I think, kicks us off. Dunsel is very much a critical look at like the music industry and like record labels and executives and that relationship. And I actually think Dunsel is, if you want to understand where Protest Hero was in their head when they were recording Scurrilous, go listen to Dunsel and like really analyze the lyrics. It's phenomenal.
I'm just looking right now.
Yeah.
Like, so the songs we sung when we were just young have all but lost their meaning, but there's still a few things that we keep on believing. Shitty music just ain't worth making. Smiles and thank yous just ain't worth faking.
Yeah.
Some asshole's hands just ain't worth shaking, and if it ain't broken, we need to break it.
Yeah, and Rhodey's angry. Like if you listen to that, like that, like more than any in the catalog, you can hear his anger come through, and it's what makes that song so good. But like there's this trend here. It starts with Dunsel, then it goes into Underbite and ends in Caravan. And this is probably not intentional, but it worked out the way. We have this trilogy of a critical lens of the music industry, through these 3 songs that ends in Caravan. So that's one element there. And then another is if we look at Title and From the Sky and A Life Embossed off of Volition. So Life Embossed is another one of my favorite songs. It's advocating for pit bulls because they are kind of just wrongly maligned in today's society. It's also just fantastic. Musically, the breakdown in A Life Embossed is it's just it's very kind of syncopated. It's a little genty. It's great. And it's kind of the first time that they've done something musically kind of like that type of a breakdown. And then follow that up with Title, and Title's very similar and it has this really cool one of my favorite like bridge breakdowns of all time, just because it's so poppy and catchy and it has a thing. And then so those 2 things I think are important musically. And where I'm going with this is I don't think we get From the Sky without Title and without Life Embossed, because From the Sky has that in that middle there, just that metal breakdown, kind of interlude riff there, that is straight out of Title, and And so that kind of experience, them kind of crunching and forcing themselves to go through that and create these songs in Pacific Myth. And, on that time they had, a month for each one, which is not that much time to write,
Right.
record, release whole song, all that. Right. Like, forced them, they learn these new things and skills and musical techniques and things that they brought back later. And so, to me, palimpsest is very much, and those are the two examples I mentioned, but like, there's so many others I could, talk all day about, right? That like palimpsest, I think, is very directly, you draw a line between that and Pacific Myth musically, and some of those themes and some of those things there. That's kind of where I wanted to end my spiel here on why I think Pacific Myth is one of the most important PTH albums and one of the most important prog albums, because we don't get where we're at today without that.
Yeah, no, I 1,000% agree with you. Pacific Myth is, I mean, when Pacific Myth came out, I listened to it on repeat for like 6 months, right? And I just listened to it over and over and over and over and over and over. It has some of my favorite guitar work of anything PTH has ever done. Things where I listen to it and I hear Luke do a thing and I go, that's not you can't. That's not possible. How did you do that? There's like a little trio of bends at the beginning of Cold Water, and he comes back to it one more time in the song, but like it's like the second of the three little bends that he does that are all doing roughly musically the same thing, but they're three different techniques. They sound slightly different if you listen to it, and you can tell he's doing three slightly different techniques there, but for some reason, like, it just hits me like, that's in the way that somebody thinks to do that, right? It's just bananas to me. And so musically, I freaking love that album. The concept of the record is amazing. And then also the fact that it completely pushes the envelope of what it means to be a band in the current environment that we're in, right? Unless you are Metallica or, I don't know, Madonna or, some of these huge bands, right? That are not just a band, but have an entire corporation built around them, right? Where the licensing of music and imagery and all of the things, the investments that come out of the money they've made from records and stuff that really are the sustaining thing that sustains those bands, rather than like, oh, here's the money that you got from your record contract, or here's the gate from the tour, or here's the money you're going to make on your Spotify plays. Like, bands that rely on that to make a living is such a different thing than bands like Kiss or Metallica or whatever that they could never make music again and never play another show again and continue to get richer and richer and richer because of the sort of the corporation that is built up around them, right? It's an industry and it's a very different world from being a touring working band to being one of these, huge, corporate bands that are out there. And the fact that PTH made a decision, right, from Volition and doing the Indiegogo thing to Pacific Myth and doing the streaming subscription service, like, this is a band who is pushing the boundaries, but also innovating in the music industry in what it means to be a functioning, touring, working band that can survive in the long term, and innovating new ways and new concepts. Like, nobody was doing a subscription-based music thing for new bands when Pacific Myth came out. That was like they were the first ones.
And to my knowledge, nobody's done it since. So they were definitely the first ones, and I don't think anybody's done it since either. Like it kind of lives on its own as this unique thing in the prog scene. That
and I think we won't. It won't be the end of it. I think we will see that again as technology allows, be in the time since Pacific Myth came out and today, you can be a professional Twitch streamer. You couldn't do that, right? Back then. Really very few people when Pacific Myth came out that were professional Twitch streamers. There were people who might, if Twitch even existed back then, you were streaming, but you weren't making your full-time living doing that. And that's an entirely subscription-based content model. That is, I'm an individual person. I'm going to make this content. You're going to subscribe to me, and I'm going to use that subscription content or that subscription money that I'm making to use it to create content for you and make that my living. And I think we are going to see as technology and as the impact of the record labels starts to, continues to diminish, that we may have more subscription-based bands out there that are just like, hey, we're a subscription-based band. This is how you get new music from us, and here's what you can expect. I think we're going to see more of that. That's just my guess.
I hope so.
I do too. And I also like it. There is a sense, if you think about for hundreds or thousands of years, art, whether it be music or painting or sculpture, whatever, art in general was you had a like a benefactor, right? Somebody who, commissioned you to make these pieces of art for them, right? So like somebody like Beethoven would get commissioned to create a piece of music, or Da Vinci would get commissioned to paint a thing, right? And that's how you, as an artist, survived, right? You got money from benefactors that then allowed you to create your art. And I feel like we've now come sort of full circle on that, and that we now as fans have much more ability to support the artists that we care about in them creating that art. And so that's one of the reasons, like, I'm a tier 3 Twitch subscriber because to Roadie stream, because I want to make sure that I'm supporting him in his art. And why you're going to release stuff like special edition, I'm going to buy that stuff. Not because I need another version of Volition or Fortress or whatever on vinyl. I've got all of them. But because I want to support the band that I love in allowing them to continue to create great art. And that's, I think we live in an age where fans are able to do that much easier than we have been ever before. And I think also, as fans, we need to call on other fans also to do the same, right? Because we also live in an age where you don't have to buy a record anymore. You just listen to it on Spotify, and the band gets, a tenth of a thousandth of a penny for that listen. And like, that's not sustainable.
It's not.
So, you know what I mean? Like,
unless you're Taylor Swift, then maybe, but no, for nobody else.
Yeah. And so like I'm not going to lie. I listen to most of the music I listen to on Spotify, but I buy the albums and I have my record collection. You know what I mean? Like, I buy the music of the people that I care about because I want to support them. And I think more people need to be willing to do the same, or we're going to lose out on people being able to make this art that we love, because they're not making Metallica money, right? And so they have to also support themselves. I think we're very lucky in that PTH has, like Sheet Happens is a great business for Luke, and the ability to have that successful business also then means there's the ability to continue to make art, and all of them sort of have their little things that they do to allow that to happen. So I think that's awesome. But not everybody has that opportunity. I've heard, you've heard of a lot of bands that didn't make it through the pandemic because if you can't tour, they're basically living paycheck to paycheck. And if you can't tour, you can't get any money, and you got to give it up to take care of your family or, that kind of thing. So it's very important for us as fans to support the artists that we love, so that they can continue to make that art.
Yeah, I think platforms like Patreon are great for that. Just use an example. Lauren Babick has a great Patreon that she posts most of her stuff to YouTube, but that's an opportunity for to contribute directly to an artist that is doing really cool stuff and that I think is very talented, right? And I want to make sure she's able to continue to do her thing. And she doesn't need my Patreon dollars at this point. She's pretty good on her own. But still, I think if anything, with more technology that we have, right? We should be always looking for, where are there smaller artists, right, that we can contribute to directly, right? Whether it's, a band like Protest or, an artist like Lauren, like I mentioned, or even things like comic book artists. There's a few that I can, think of, or people on YouTube, or just, people in the world, right, that you see making cool art. That would be my call, right? Actually, find somebody that is doing something cool that you can contribute to directly in some way, rather than go, listen to that thing on Spotify. To everybody, all the listeners here, whatever that is, because that's how we're going to keep getting cool things. We're never going to get another Princess the Hero if we're only relying on the old ways of the music industry and things like that. We need to push forward, and it's on us to, to find those artists and support them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, man.
Yeah, well, this has been great. Thanks so much for having me on. I would love to keep talking, but I also want to be conscious of your time here because we've gone long.
Well, yeah. We're like at an hour and 40. So with stuff before and stuff after, we'll cut it down a little bit and get it close to an hour. But so yeah, I appreciate you coming in and talking to me about this band that we both love so much. Also, kind of giving Rody the middle finger that he didn't get to be a part of the conversation, which that makes me incredibly happy. We'll have you. I mean, we'll have to have you back when Rody's here.
I would love to be back
for sure. And but thank you for coming out, hanging out, and for folks, this Rody should be coming back. They get back this week sometime, I think, right?
Yeah, I think the
end of this week.
I think the last date was yesterday.
Yeah,
like that. Yeah, so they should be back this week.
Yep, and then we'll get back on track, getting Rody in, and we'll have post Australia tour episode where Rody breaks down all the fun and crazy stuff that they did while they were in Australia. And we'll try and get some of the guys from the band on as guests so that we can hear their perspectives as well. We got to get Hank on for sure.
I think we'd get Hank.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a problem getting Hank. Hank's the best. We're definitely going to get Timmy on. We're just going to get everybody. So stick around. Let us know in the comments on whatever platform you're listening to this, how you like the show. If you're on Apple, give it, I don't know, 4 corns or whatever. How do you rank on Apple?
I think it's a corn system. Yeah.
Is it
Apple
a corn
Podcast
system?
Use. Yeah.
Apple uses a corn rating system.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. And And join the Discord if you haven't already. Join the Discord. We have a couple podcast specific channels where you can talk about the podcast and you can submit your questions for the podcast that Rody and I will address in future episodes. So get in there and do that. But until next time, thanks everybody, and we'll talk to you later.